So I propose to start. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the info session about the B Corp certification. Before to start, allow me to give you some housekeeping rules. I didn't put that on, no, doesn't matter. So do know that this webinar is being recorded. We will have a Q&A session at the end. If you have any technical issue, please use the chat. And do know that the presentation will be shared afterwards. So I'm Eglantine Coates, and I'm in charge of the partnership with BILAB Benelux and The Shift. And I'm really excited to be here today and even more excited about the huge amount of interest for this session. Thank you very much for joining us today. As you already know, The Shift and Benelux and BILAB Benelux made an agreement. Following this agreement, we committed to be the point of contact for information and support to explore the opportunity on the market, to help advance the B Corp movement, and to support the existing community in Belgium. So do not hesitate to contact us. Today, the agenda will be divided in two parts. One about the practical information about the movement and the tools, and another part on the testimonials from B Corps. Our speakers are all very experimented as they all are certificated B Corporation. I already thank them for their participation. So first we will have Arnaud Tassio from Innate Motion, and he will introduce the B Corp movement. And then we will have Diana De Schutter from Quest, and she will give an introduction about the business impact assessment and also a small introduction about the SDG Action Manager. And then we will have a panel with 3 B Corporations, one new B Corporation, so from the brewery Bruno, and then Materialize or in process of certification, and then Quest we will were certificate since some years. And then we will have the Q&A session. That's the panelists. Arnaud, I give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I will continue sharing the screen. Can you see it? It's good. Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much, Eglantine, for the introduction. I'm Arnaud Tassio. I'm partner at Innate Motion, and I'm really happy to be here today and to present to you the B Corp movement. Just a few words about Innate Motion. We are a global consulting firm, a group of business humanizers doing strategy and positioning work to unlock more meaningful growth. And we are a B Corp since 2015, so quite a long time. So that's why actually we are happy to make this movement bigger through this session. So actually, you know, when we think about B Corp, many people say, B what? You know, where does this come from? And many people would say, you know, what's in the name? And the reality is, in this case, you know, there's a lot into the name. When you think about business in general, you know, there's this belief, this long time ago belief, I would say, that business is made only for profit. And that was the case in the States, where there was only one type of corporation, you know, only for profit. You had to maximize the profit of your shareholders. And, you know, if you would not do so, you may risk to go to jail. And then there's been a big shift, you know, a big cultural shift, thinking that business needs to do more than just going for profit. And I would say, I think it's 2007, there were 3 brave, courageous people who said, you know, we just don't want to make the difference for our business, but we want to drive that difference for the bigger world. And the reality is there. There's a big need to change, you know. So if I fast forward in time, if we look at last year we consumed 1.5 times what our planet can regenerate. We call this the ecological threat. 8 billionaires own the equivalent wealth of 50% of the world population, or social divide, and then every 40 seconds, someone commits suicide. So sorry to start with a gloomy picture of the world, but we're going to come into the positive side afterwards. But you see that, you know, that's not sustainable. That's why actually we need to business to step out, and it's great to see that the world organize itself to make a difference, you know, that people are moving, you know, and that institutions also recognize their role of organizing everything to let everyone and let people participate. This is also actually, you know, if it's coming from the heart, this is also what people expect you to do. So people tell us, you know, yeah, we expect CEOs, leaders to step in when, you know, institutions leave a gap, you know, into creating a positive impact. And it also, you know, this is what I expect, but it's also creating love and brand love. So, you know, they will tell you, you know, we're going to go for you if you make this happen. So in summary, yeah?
Sorry, but I think that you're freeze on your first slide.
On my first slide?
We're still on introduction.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay, okay, sorry, thank you for that. So actually, bye-bye the few and welcome the many, you know, welcome the 21st century stakeholder value, you know, enlarging the panel. It moves now, yeah? Good, okay. So this shift requires a system change. You know, there's a recognition of the need to change. And then there's a need for seeing, you know, do we see the light? You know, is there something coming through? And the reality is it's happening now. You know, we see it happening everywhere. So initiatives taking place, that's the good news. No, you're going to tell me, yes, B Corp, but concretely, what does this mean? You know, after this big introduction, you know, concretely, what is this about? It starts then, as you understood, with a big goal, which is using business as a force for good to solve social, environmental problems whilst making profit. So it's not leaving profit behind, but it's really combining people, profit, and planet. It's then when you have that goal in mind, what is really important is that you get people who want to make that difference, you know, want to create that difference. You know, it's all first, you know, after a big goal, a shared goal, you know, it's a group of people who wants to create impact. And then you come into the how. And B Corp is really bringing three things. First, a measure about, you know, how well are we doing on the social and environmental dimension. Many, there are legal frameworks in many countries, but this one is really pushing you and helping you measure your performance on this one. Transparency through a B impact report, and accountability, which means actually in B Corp you have to push, you know, the thinking up to your legal status of the company. So this is on those three elements that that B Corp plays, and you see it's moving. It's become big into the world, you know. So you see more than almost 4,000 B Corps in 70 countries, 150 industries, 70 billion revenues. So this is big. This is real. This is happening. We see also moving that movement, you know, on the consumer side. Meaning, you know, you find back the B Corp label on packagings, you find it back on the press, and you even see some retailers starting having aisles organized around B Corp products. You see also that countries elevate that to the new legal frameworks. So it's not just anymore the business, but it's also the government realizing the impact and the interest of pushing B Corp and putting legal laws, legal frameworks around it. So that's B Corp, you know, and just sharing with you, you know, our in-motion experience, because many people will tell you, you know, we don't have the money to do this, you know, and I think, you know, an important pushback is that not only, you know, it's true, it's touching the heart, it's touching your will, this is something actually you want to from the inside, but it has also a strong business value. And I see this acceleration of growth, I would say, through values. You get faster alignment within the company because you have this North Star in front of you. We saw actually people, talent coming to us. It was never happening before, but people going spotting us on the B Corp directory and coming to us. New partnerships. It's amazing actually how when you sit at the table with other B Corps, you know how much you feel you share the same values and how fast you can build trust. And then also new customers for the same reason. You know, B Corp, this label is creating, I would say, a lot of trust in the relationship. You know, you share the same values and people invite you to the table. So true, you know, it's going to give you a better sleep because you do the right thing, but it has also an important value drive. So this is what I wanted to share. And as a conclusion, you know, please don't see B Corp just as a certification, but it's truly a leadership tool for mobilizing and creating meaningful business growth. So it's really about the beauty of this movement is about this mobilization power that is behind this label and behind, I would say, that huge community. That being said, I'm going to share let Diana go into the B impact assessment for the next the remaining of the session. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Arnaud. Let me just get my screen started for everyone. Awesome. And let's see if that works. Great. Perfect. Can everyone hear me, see my screen? Everyone okay? Yeah, awesome. I'm going to start my timer. I don't think I'll need the full time, but at least being respectful of your time. So as Arnaud said, we'll be going over the B impact assessment. As Arnaud also said, B Corp is a lot of different things. It's a community, it's a movement, but ultimately I believe at the core, it's the B impact assessment, really getting those companies to that movement. Really quickly, before I keep going into depth, you'll see a QR code. It has one question if you take the quiz, and we'll go through your answers as well. So as you're getting prepared for that, for those of you who don't know the B impact assessment tool, it's ultimately a holistic, powerful, comprehensive management tool that helps organizations understand, improve, measure, and communicate their impact across the world. And I'll be focusing on the next 20 minutes or so on an introduction of the B impact assessment, but also the SDG Action Manager, though I won't go into depth on that. So ultimately, the objective for today is to have a conversation and understanding for individuals who don't know what the impact assessment is, to give you enough insight and understanding of exactly what it measures, and also to encourage you to dig a bit deeper. But for those of you who have looked at it, the goal is to understand the structure and help you leverage it and maximize it into your organization. So if some of you have taken the quiz, and if it worked, if not, we'll move on. Let's see. Perfect. Awesome. So for the most part, this room is mixed, right? So some of you have heard of it, but you haven't started it. And so hopefully with this, we can guide you through that. Some of you have started it, so hopefully can give you the framework to keep going. And if you've never heard of it, good. That's what we're going to be going over today and make sure we explain it in depth. Awesome. Thank you for participating. So really quickly, a quick introduction on why I'm the person talking about the BIA Insight with you today. Ultimately, I'm Diana. I'm a certified B leader, meaning I've gone through the training with Eglantine as well to get a solid understanding of the assessment and to help guide companies through this assessment. I'm also a part of Quest Impact Design Studio, a certified B Corp since 2019. And for Quest, when it launched or when Quest was created, it was always with the intention to become B Corp certified. So using this framework and using this community and this movement, we've integrated it into every internal decision as well as external services that we provide. But ultimately, as a part of the team, I'm called an internal champion, meaning I guide Quest through our impact decisions in our journey for recertification, because you have to do that every couple of years, but also guiding others in this process as well. Perfect. So the reason we're here, the B impact assessment. Ultimately, we'll be looking at it in a snapshot, and then we'll dive into some specifics a bit later. The BIA, as I'm going to be calling it for the rest of the day, is the most widely used free and confidential tool used to measure and manage a company's social and environmental impact. So to simplify it even more, because I think that's even complicated as a whole, it's a questionnaire. It's a scored questionnaire that walks through a series of questions to help you learn what it takes to be a better business. But when we say better for, we're going to look at 5 impact areas, as you can see on your screen. You see community, environment, customers, governance, and workers. You can see these, as I said, as impact areas, but you can also use them as stakeholder groups, for example. So this impact assessment is looking at how can you better understand and reflect on how your business activities impact these groups, impact these stakeholders. It helps you reflect and learn and see where your business is today and where you can go. I also like to call the B impact assessment and the tool as a library of best practices that you choose to implement. So you can use what you've learned, you can reflect upon all the best practices and create a roadmap or an action plan for the year or the multi-year journey that is to come. So looking at the design, as I said, it is a scored questionnaire. So what are the actual aspects that it does score or measure? It's broken down into 2 sections: the operational impact, there's my slide, the operational impact and the business impact business models. Essentially, you can earn points or be recognized for practices you already have or plan to implement into your business. The points vary per question. So it might be one question is a small percentage of a point. Some questions might include a lot more points or multiple points in the assessment as well. Ultimately, it takes the score from both of these aspects and it compares it to thousands of other businesses to see how your business stacks up. But again, creating a customized improvement plan to help guide you through those best practices. Awesome. So let's move on. Going into the design a bit more. So these are kind of the 4 sections of how we describe the BIA design. So comprehensive and positive, what does that mean? Comprehensive is it goes really into depth in all areas of your business. So it's really getting to know how your business operates and what decisions you're making. Positive, because it only rewards you for points, or it only recognizes the positive. It doesn't penalize or take away any points for any business activities you're not doing. Standardized and adaptive, what does that mean? There is a set bar, or I should say standard, you have to meet across the globe. So across the US and Belgium and really everywhere, you do have a standard you have to hit. But there is an adaptive way where there's over 100 different versions of the BIA. You're put on a track based on the sector, the size, the geography of your company. So for example, a small agency like Quest or sustainability consultancy has a very different plan than a large CPG brand. And that obviously makes sense. So we don't want to compare apples to oranges. So looking at objective and dynamic. Objective because it's verifiable. So yes, you take the questionnaire yourself or the BIA yourself, but you do have a standards analyst that would be reviewing your documents to verify your answers and your questions. It's dynamic as well because it's constantly improved. So you're constantly adding your own feedback per region and also changing through the global standards that change. It's renewed every 3 years. So right now at this moment, we're on version 6 that was renewed as of January 2019. And lastly, it's inspirational and educational. Again, this is not supposed to be something that is overwhelming or that really is not motivating you to kind of succeed. It's challenging, yes. If it wasn't, then everyone would be a B Corp. But ultimately, it has that library of best practices to make sure that you're guided to the right direction. So awesome. Let's see where that works. Now, as I said earlier, you're scored on operational impact and impact business models. So to break it down a bit more and to go into a bit more detail, operational impact questions, you can think of them pretty much as questions that any organization or company is going to have, from a sustainability consultancy to a pharmaceutical company. We're ultimately looking at what practices do you have in your operations. Now for this section, we'll go through some questions to have a better idea, because I know it's a bit overwhelming just looking at the pillars. But as I mentioned, it has the 5 pillars of the BIA: governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. So diving in a bit more into governance, it's really divided into subsections. So mission and engagement, workers, you're going to be looking at how are your workers compensated? Are you focusing on their health and wellness? Do they have a career development plan? So some questions, for example, might include, what is the company's highest level of corporate oversight? And this is for governance. So you might be thinking, okay, I have an owner or manager who makes those final decisions. Or we have a non-fiduciary, and I think I mispronounced that, advisory board that helps us make decisions. We're also looking at workers. So training opportunities. Does your company provide any of the following training opportunities for your workers? So it might include offering onboarding training within a year, reimbursements for intensive education programs. So as you can tell in these questions, you're not only answering and seeing where you stand, it's also giving you ideas of where to go. And so you can actually see with the questions, you have the Learn More button where it gives you a resource of information of what else you could look into, links to provide you better information, but also feedback. If this is a question that doesn't apply to you or you have some recommendations to improve, we're going to be taking that into account as well. So going back into the section, so community, diversity and inclusion, this is also focused on internal, but also your supply chain. So what are you doing to internally advocate for diversity and inclusion? Environment, you'll see, is broken down into systems. So do you have systems in place for these impact areas of air, water, and land and life? Customers, you have customer stewardship. So what that means is ultimately, do you have data protection? Do you focus on your customer satisfaction? Do your customers have a voice and say? So some of those questions are going to look like, how does your company take part in civic engagement? So do you do financial donations? Do you have partnerships with charitable organizations? Do you advocate for policies for social and environmental issues? Those are, again, some questions and some ideas to get you going. For environment, does your company have any programs and policies in place to reduce environmental footprint? So you can say, we incentivize our employees to use public transport, which is readily available, or we encourage employees to take virtual meetings. Definitely in this day and age with COVID, that might just be the decision we make, where we decide to stay home for some meetings versus going in person and taking that environmental footprint into consideration. So just as we went through operational impact questions that every company will go through, now these are a bit more specific, which is the impact business model. Now with that, these questions, I should say, are for companies that are structured in a way or have designed their products and services specifically to overcome social and environmental challenges, and ultimately get rewarded through the B Corp framework via these questions and points. Sometimes, if I'm honest, there is a greater opportunity to earn a lot more points in this section, but ultimately it's meant to encourage companies to use unique resources or your unique resources for a force for good. So for example, a consultancy like Arnaud at Innate Motion, they'd most likely get points because they help clients through more sustainable practices, just like Quest. This might be harder to achieve. These questions might be a bit more difficult and not relate to your company immediately, but it's a great way to start rethinking and innovating products and services that could create more impact. So it's a good way to kind of innovate and really motivate companies to start thinking this way. So going into just the platform itself, and I am going a lot quicker than I expected, so I'm glad we'll have more time for questions at the end. But the dashboard itself, as you'll see on the left, there are a lot of different resources, right? So you can look at the B impact assessment, which we just went through, the SDG manager, which we'll go into, but also filing reports, setting goals as well. So maybe in the BIA, you haven't quite achieved those policies or are still thinking of those questions. You can set a goal and say, we want to achieve this by this date. So it'll have all your goals there that you can start planning and getting that roadmap to achieve those goals. But it also have a resource section where you'll be able to go through and read more on what it takes to go through this, where you can find help, and really how to achieve the BIA. or how to achieve the assessment. Going into, again, the dashboard, just to get you familiar with it, because I think the best way going forward is seeing that it is quite easy, it is quite simple, and it is a very user-friendly platform. So this is what you can see for the impact assessment. You'll see all the different sections, you'll see the score, the questions you've answered. Obviously, this is a sample one, but to get you a bit more familiar with the actual platform. Now, I cannot emphasize enough how many resources you do get in this assessment. This page is obviously a very simple way to view it, but it gives you a lot of reports and an understanding. It compiles company lists, and it really gives you as much information and support to get you through this. This is not supposed to be an impossible task. Obviously, it's challenging because the certification means a lot, and it means the fact that you are really looking at people and environment, but we want to make sure you have all the resources to be able to do it. So I wouldn't be kind of focusing on guiding companies through this if I didn't just give you steps to really become certified yourself. I want to identify that it's always really important to identify a team to help you through this. An internal team, if you have it, or an external team that gives you that support, but pretty much having a small group, a couple of individuals that really focus on this and can say this is their project will really ultimately motivate the team to get going forward, but also including it into your practices and being okay where this team can ask other team members for help in that. Now, step 2 would be starting the BIA. And as you can tell, I don't say step 1, pass the BIA, because it's okay to just go into the platform, explore it a bit. It is free, as I mentioned, so you can sign in, create an account, you can play around with the questions, play around with the information, because ultimately, yes, I focused a lot today on scoring and getting the points, but it's ultimately about what internal changes are you making? Are you learning and guiding your company towards success? And so it might take a couple times of playing around with the BA, getting the right policies in place. And we want to make sure that you're familiar and doing the right internal changes that are transparent, but also really transforming your company. So step 3 is, yes, score 880 plus. As Arnaud mentioned in his presentation, a minimum score of 80 is what is needed to actually be a certified B Corp. But again, I want to reiterate that a lot of companies do not pass on their first time because it's a big portion of questions. And again, it's about transformation. So it's okay to do it a couple times and not get to that 80, but we want to make sure that that is the minimum score for organizations. Hopefully more, obviously, going forward. 4 and 5 is great. You passed your certification. Let's make it official. You have to do a legal requirement, which Arnaud had mentioned. It really depends on the country you are in as well, because I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, team, but in Belgium, we can't be changing the legal requirement right now. But then you would sign a term sheet as well as a B Corp declaration of interdependence. What this is pretty much you're signing that you're committing to making change. Lastly, you would work on getting certified. So you've passed, you've made it official, and you work with B Lab on getting certified and paying your fees. So those are my simple 5-step rules. But again, starting off with creating a really core team that'll guide you through this. So really quickly, I'm going to go through the SDG Action Manager. It's just this slide because I'm not going to go into detail since I know the Shift has a very specialized webinar hosted on the 31st, Eglantine, if I'm correct. Awesome. So give you a quick introduction. In 2020, B Corp and the UN Global Compact came together to create the SDG Action Manager. Ultimately, what you need to know, it's very similar to the BIA in the sense that it's a tool, it's structured in the same way. There is overlap in some of the questions, but you don't have to do double the work. But it's different because it provides all types of businesses with the opportunity to learn and manage their sustainability performance. Now, you may argue, and in the chat you might put, isn't that what I just heard? But for the most part, this SDG Manager is focused on the SDGs, and the BIA is focused on the 5 pillars that I identified. So like I said, there are overlapping questions, but you don't need to redo them since they are integrated together. The SDG Action Manager starts with a baseline that incorporates the BIA and the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. So human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption, that are really essential to people and planet. And it advises companies on which SDGs they should start their journey. So which ones have you the most impact on? And then it obviously invites you to explore others. Ultimately, what I see this tool as and how Quest is kind of utilizing this tool at the moment is to help us set goals, track our improvement, because ultimately we're, I guess, less than 10 years now, we're to achieve the SDGs, and it's a way to stay motivated, visualize your progress. And as you saw on the dashboards, you can always come back and really track your progress. So for me, as I said, I did not want to spend all that time because I want to focus on your questions. So I will pass it over back to Eglantine to start the panel.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Thank you very much, Diana. We already have quite a lot of questions. So what I suggest is we will do a short Q&A session about the movement and the BIA, and then we will go on the panel parts with really a testimonial of B Corp. So I see that we receive already questions, so thanks a lot. So one question is, can you elaborate on what concretely to take into action as a startup when willing to comply to the B Corp philosophy and certify movements? And I think this question was for Arnaud.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the philosophy is not to comply, but to use B Corp to elevate what you do. So it's a tool, a thinking tool for, you know, going towards, you know, people, planet, and profit. So yeah, it's more a tool than a compliance element. It's more a journey. And what is interesting is that B Corp is also shifting from a fixed certification to an improvement measure, meaning that at the end of the day, it's not about having a fixed number, but it's every time rethinking, evolving, improving. So you may do in the future, and that's nice. You may do the same stuff, but not get the same number, because it's all about improving your score.
All right, thank you, Arnaud. Here, question, I think it's for Diana, but in what way does B Corp relate to excellent model like Malcolm Baldwright and EFQM model?
I'm going to ask if Arnaud, you have a better familiarity with that?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm not quite sure, but I can definitely get back to you, Willie, on that answer, because I'm not quite sure or familiar with the Malcolm Baldwright one. Or even Andreas, if you have a better idea.
Another question is, how long in average does it take to certificate B Corp?
Yeah, it really depends. I know it ranges anywhere from 6 months to a year. And for example, you'll see in the panel as well, sometimes it takes longer because you want to make sure you're transforming your business a bit more. So it really depends, but I would say on average of anywhere from kind of a few months to a year.
I can come back on the first question, Eglantine, if you want. You know, I think what is important in the philosophy of B Corp, you know, it's not about excellence. You know, it's about seeing the world in a different way. It's about seeing the abundance in the world, you know, and what we are good at, you know, as leaders and managers is to do planning. You know, we always look at all resources and we think about, you know, what can I do with my resources? While B Corp invites you to really look at the world and the impact you can have into the world. So it's you know, shifting from scarcity, you know, I have a business, I have a P&L, you know, and thinking beyond and seeing how you can really impact for regenerative reasons, because we know that sustainability is not going to be enough. So it's a calling for seeing more, I would say. So get away from excellence, go there with uncertainty and move towards, you know, bigger ambitions, I would say.
Thank you. I see one question about the B Corp and the link with the SDGs, but I think that Diana already responds, and do not hesitate to register to the session about the SDG Action Manager that will happen May 31. It's on the Shift website. It's open to everyone. Yeah, is BIA and certificate globally valid and recognized?
Yeah, I'll jump into that. Yeah, it's absolutely across the globe. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but started out in the US, Canada, and it's really expanding out to Europe and other regions. So yeah, absolutely globally recognized. And this is, like I mentioned, it is the most used tool and the most used growing certification at this moment. So yes, globally recognized.
And I think, you know, what is important there is that B Corp is an inclusive movement. You know, so we also love the idea that other labels are coming to life, you know, and they try to make a difference. So it's not about competing, but look, you know, we work the Shift, you know, as a bigger, many different things. So it's amazing the work the Shift is also doing in that context, bringing B Corp into their agenda. So it's really about this inclusivity of B Corp that is really important in that context, I would say.
There is two questions around EcoVadis. So one asking what is the difference between B Corp and EcoVadis, and one person saying that is quite new in the field and he hear different name, EcoVadis, B Corp. So could you just explain a little bit the difference and where or all this certification are?
I have no idea.
Oh, I can jump in. So again, jumping as Arnaud had mentioned, there are different certifications out there, and for B Corp, it was focused on how can we be the most holistic in approach, right? And absolutely, EcoVadis is great when you're looking at analyzing your supply chain and making sure that there's that transparency and there's that transparency within your supply chain and that support. But when we're looking at, as the presentation you saw, it's a holistic approach. So what are you doing for your customers? Are you looking at your supply chain? What are you doing for the environment, for advocacy, for your clients? So it's looking at your organization as a whole, from management structure, from decisions, from policies, and really making sure that the organization as a whole, supply chain as well included, is really moving. Are you advocating for a positive movement? So there is a difference in that sense. Obviously, you can have both. You can have EcoVadis and B Corp. That's a lot of B Corps actually do have that, but it's again more a holistic approach, and I would say that's the difference versus supply chain.
I'm looking at a different question. Yeah, there is one question that will come quite often during the info session, and it's true, is some BIA questions are not really adapted to startup or French or European markets. So I think that is a very interesting question to respond.
Yeah, to answer that question, as I mentioned, also it's focused on feedback, right? Like, and we're, as Arnaud said, we're not perfect. Like this framework is adapting to the new regions, to the new locations and the new standards in every location that it's going into. So as it grows, it gets renewed every 3 years, and it gets renewed by location also, right? So to give you an example with diversity and inclusion, that's a hot topic right now, and especially in the US and in Europe. So the policies that US companies are required to have are very different than what the policies that the UK or Europe has to have. So it's adapting now itself to create this framework that's more helpful for you out here. So yes, with startups, we're a startup as well. So it took us, you have to kind of be active for 2 years to be able to achieve it. And there are some questions that you can provide feedback for to say, hey, as a startup, this doesn't affect me. Can we improve it that way? And that does get considered, and it does renew itself every 3 years to make sure that we are supporting each region and each kind of necessity per company.
I will take one of two questions. There is many, but we can maybe respond at the end. There is one question about, different question about the process, more what kind of audit of what kind of document you have to show. So you need to upload evidence to support your answer. If yes, what is the evidence? So maybe you can explain that everything has to be proved.
Yeah, as I mentioned again in the 5 steps, yes, it's a questionnaire and you're answering it. But when we're looking at, let's say, do you have a what was one of the questions? Do you have a policy that supports your staff to like cut their emissions? So if you have a policy in place saying, hey, we reward you if you take meetings from home, or we're incentivizing you to take public transport to reduce your emissions, those documents you will have to provide to say, okay, it checks out and it does have within the organization. Or do you do onboarding for your new staff? What are the rewards, or not rewards? Yeah, what's the onboarding processes? Proving that and sending those documents in. There are some that you're going to have to create policies for and kind of have a framework for. And again, there's resources in the actual assessment tool to help you identify how to write those. But those type of documents is what you're going to be submitting.
Yes, and so you really have, it's very serious, and you have to send all your documents, and you have like a team or specialists, analysts, and then the opportunity during one call to respond to the question of all the analysts. I see that there is many other questions. I propose that maybe we can ask to the question at the end, and I suggest now to go to the panel. Maybe some question will be response during the testimonial, if it's okay for you. So now we will have 3 B Corps or future B Corps will give share with you their experience. So first we will have Marc-Antoine de Meest, who were the owner of the brewery De Bruno, Andreas Van Dijk from Metallized, and Diana that you already know from Quest. So welcome, Marc-Antoine.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Marc-Antoine. So happy to have you today. You are the first brewery in Europe, I think.
Yes, exactly. We are very proud of it.
Thank you. So what I suggest is we will have an exchange during 10 minutes, something like this, and I will ask you some questions. But first, I just would like you to introduce your organization and explain when you receive your certification.
Okay. So my name is Marc-Antoine in French. I am the happy owner of the Bruno Brewery, which is an artisanal Belgian brewery based near Tournai. And we are producing organic only, so we are 100% organic beer producer, and we are also well known as a producer of gluten-free beer. So some words about the story. I was used to be a crisis manager before I was a brewer, and so my job was restructuring companies in difficulties, I would say. And 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to buy the Bruno Brewery, which was at that time bankrupt. So the first years, when I took over the business, was a real difficult job. That was to restructure and to make this company again profitable. So the aim was not to be good for the world, but first to save the company. It took me around 5 years to be profitable again. And when we began to earn some money, I tried to find something else, just to put some meaning to the company. And the first thing we did is to change the normal beer into organic. And then I changed the structure of the company, going to holacracy or sociocracy, because I found it was much more interesting for our people to be in a good environment to work. And so we really changed the organization of the company into yeah, as we say, a liberate company. Then as you know, being organic is a sort, it's not a philosophy. It's just a certificate, and you can buy organic barley, for example, from Ukraine or Brazil if it's cheaper than Belgium. So I was not happy with that, and we got the certification of Nature et Progrès, where the first condition is to be organic, but then you have all the philosophy around. And the philosophy is how you take care of your people, or you take care of your supplier, or you take care. So it's a little bit the same philosophy as B Corp, but it's not formal. So it's a sort of intention. If you have the intention to do that, you can be certified Nature et Progrès. And then after that, we have been certified also a thing which name in Belgium Prix Juste Producteur. It's a sort of Belgium fair trade, and where we engage ourselves to buy only from organic farmer in Belgium, meaning that we pay today 30% more our ingredients than I would say an industrial brewer, because we subsidize really the Belgian agriculture. So it's a process who took 10 years, something like that. And on a meeting 2 years ago, Regenerative Alliance in the woods of Libramont, I heard about B Corp. The boss of B Corp Switzerland was there, and he made a sort of a small conference about B Corp, and I was very excited, because that was for me a sort of a concretization of everything we did during this 10th last year. And so we decided to try to get the certification, and we got it on the first trial, proving that what we did the last 10 years were okay, on the good track. What I really like with B Corp, so the first thing is that it's certified what we did the last 10 years. It is proving that we are not making greenwashing, that it proves that what we say we did it, we do it. And the last thing is that, as Arnaud said before, it's just a way to improve ourselves, that we have objectives, and that we have to improve ourselves and to improve the team and to improve our processes. And I'm very excited to have a new certification again in 2.5 years from now, and to see the way we did during these 3 years.
Yes, and thank you. And what does it bring to your organization, for your employees, for your supplier, for the client? Does it bring something concretely?
The first thing is that our employees are very proud, I would say, to be part of a company being the only brewery being B Corp in Europe, or the first one. So we already receive other colleagues in our organization to have some advices how to be B Corp. So it's fine, it's fantastic, and so my employees, or some of them, are now coach for other employees of other companies, just to explain how to do it. So it's really, they are really proud of it, and it's team building. It's a sort of recognition, and they are not working in an unknown company. So on the other way, for our customer, that is a little bit my problem today. It's how to explain the customers what is a B Corp company, because B Corp is not known today for Mr. Van Pieperzeel, I would say, and they don't know how to, my problem is how to transmit these values to the public. Because
in that we need to raise awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And our problem is that we are not selling directly to customers. We are going through distributors. We are going through shops or supermarkets or organic supermarkets. And how to get this message to the people? That's I would not say a problem, but it's my question mark today.
And a last question for you, and then maybe could you just, how do you see the recertification for you? Because Arnaud said at the beginning that it's nice to have one, you get, I don't remember exactly how many points you get, but that's just the start of the journey.
Yeah, it forced us to go ahead, which is very nice. In fact, it's not just a question to increase our volume or to brew more beer or to make more marketing. It put really objectives, and on the first certification, we told, the brewery use a lot of water. Normally, in average in the business, we need 7 liters of water to make 1 liter of beer, which is huge. Because the cleaning, so we recover the bottle from the market and we have to clean them inside, outside, and so it takes a lot of water. And so the objective we put on the first certification is to achieve to use only 5 liters per liter of beer. And so it means that all investment that we are doing now the next 3 years is just to improve our consumption of water, which is more than necessary. The water will be tomorrow a big problem on the planet, and so it forces us to think about things which are not linked with profitability or short-term objective. It's a long-term objective, and it's the same with the comfort of our people, for example. It's not figures, it's not profitability, but it's just a question of happiness of our people to be working in the brewery. So it's giving objective on long term. I like it very much.
Yeah, so if I have to summarize, it's you have your incomes growing objective, but thanks to the B Corps, you also have objectives how to increase your impact on different pillars. Absolutely.
It's a question of responsibility, I think, and it's the right moment to do it. And with our Corona crisis, it proves that, the world is not only money, and that something is more than that. You saw it with the boss of Danone being fired because the power of the money sometimes is still too big.
Thank you very much, Marc-Antoine, for sharing your experience. Maybe we will come back to you later with some questions from the audience.
I stay with you.
Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Andrea. As Marc-Antoine, I proposed before starting with the question, you just introduce yourself and your organization and explain where you are for the moment in your journey.
Sure. So my name is Andreas van Dijk. I'm Sustainability Coordinator at Materialize, which is a 3D printing pioneer with almost 3 decades of experience. We develop software for industrial 3D printing. And in Leuven, we also run one of the largest production facilities in the world, where we produce for various industries like the aeronautics, the automotive, and the medical industry. With the Materialize next to my sustainability coordinator job, I'm also for B Corp the internal project lead. And as Materialize, we started the process in March 2020, so last year, just before the whole pandemic hit. And right now we just finished the pre-screen phase. So we went through the BIA first time and got our initial score, which is 55. So if you paid attention and you know that it's not enough and there's still a lot of work to do. But that's where we are right now. So the next steps for us are, of course, improving those points gradually. So yeah, that's a short summary of who I am and who the company is and where we are.
And just could you just explain why you decide to embark on the process to get the certification?
Sure. So we are already part of the United Nations Global Compact since 2017. But we feel that it's too open, that there's very little guidance, especially about best practices, for example, and how you should be operating. So in general, it's too loose and free. And I feel like it's the same with a lot of other certifications or frameworks. And I think it's a bigger problem actually when it comes to sustainability these days. Me personally, I get a bit frustrated when I still see advertisements using melting ice caps and burning forests to talk about how we need to act now, because we're way past that point already. And it was maybe good 30 years ago when I wasn't even born, by the way. Then it was kind of new information that we need to act now. But I think that we have to guard ourselves that we don't stay stuck in that same old song and screaming that we need to act now, but actually start acting now. And for that, we also need more than hollow catchphrases like we need to work together or we need to involve our stakeholders. Because if you then ask like, okay, give me 5 actions linked to that to do it, then quite often or too often it gets silent. And I get that as well, because yeah, sustainability is of course a complex issue and there is no one size fits all solution. So probably one of the main reasons that it gets silent is that you want to avoid going too much detail because you're afraid of leaving other important things out, or you simply just don't know where to start because there are so many options. But for me, and I think for Materialize as well, and for a lot of people, that's actually where B Corp really makes a difference. People are scared to go into details, but those details are exactly the strength of the whole B Corp certification process, because it's really B Corp for us and for everyone. It's, to my knowledge, the only all-encompassing rigorous sustainability framework. It takes sustainability in its entirety, as Diana already showed, that with all the pillars of sustainability. And it's not afraid to ask detailed questions, which forces you also to look at how you do business. And next to asking the questions, it also gives you real tangible improvement areas to improve on. So you know where to start and you know why or where you are and what you need to do to improve. And of course, they cannot include everything, but they do include a lot, because we, for example, the impact assessment for us was around 250 questions. So that's quite elaborate compared to Nicovadis, for example. So yeah, for us, that's the most important reason to have started this process.
Can I build actually, because we work for Materialize and Fried, so we are close to Fried, the founder of Materialize. So we've been working together for 10 years. I think, that purpose, and doing good is at the heart of Materialize since the start. And Fried sees also B Corp as a way to push boundaries, to inspire the system. And as the company is growing, they are now on the NASDAQ, it's a way also to keep the soul safe, to avoid that we disrupt. Also, there are many M&As, in the planning. So it's also a way to show, the companies they buy, we are good in our soul, So I think it's this pushing the boundaries, securing, that soul and showing the best of the company, but it's manifesting, what's into the DNA of the company already. So it's an amazing journey they are doing there.
Absolutely.
Wanted
Thanks
to
for
add.
that. Yeah. And of course, you might know we would be the first 3D printing company as well to get the certification. which would be a nice surplus as well. So yeah, but I think it's important also to say, because of course we're talking about points and getting to that threshold, but it's for us not the reason to do it. And I also told my colleague a few weeks ago, like if we don't get the actual certification, or if we would at the end not get a certification, then yeah, that wouldn't be actually a problem for us. It's really about, like you said, ingraining it in our company, and going through that transformational journey to really have it sustainability be at the core of the company, and to improve our operations. Because at the start we already do a lot. We are, for example, ISO 14001 certified. We have our carbon footprint analysis that we've done for 4 years now. Fritz, our CEO, doesn't have a company car. So we do a lot of things. So we thought, like, we have the basics in place. We're already on the right track. But then you see that you only score 55 points. So it's really not enough. So even though you think you are doing quite good regarding sustainability, there is so much more you can do. And that's for us the most important thing, to really have that significant change, and really do good, and not just the basics, and have a real impact on all the aspects, because a lot of them also often get forgotten by some certifications. So I think that's really important to keep in mind.
It's very interesting, but could you just underline what are the most challenge, because you say that you thought that you already did a lot, but still you just realize that you don't score so very good. So what are the big challenge you are facing?
Maybe some background there. We operate in around 20 countries and have a bit over 2,000 employees. So for us, one of the biggest challenges is going to be to coordinate and gather all the information necessary within the large company. Also because our operations are quite unusual. We have 3 business units: the software development, the manufacturing, and the medical one. And they all work very distinctively and in distinctive areas. So it's not that our BIA is focused on one production process, for example. So that's a first challenge that we still need to actually clarify with B Corp as well, how we will do the actual certification process to be able to encompass all the different operations and offices. So that's the first challenge, because you already noticed during the pre-screen phase, like I said, you have that inherent feeling of we're already doing good and we have a lot of potential, and we can score a lot. But then it's a question of, okay, prove it and show it with numbers. And then you have to, of course, track all those things. Or if you don't start tracking it and start a process of being able to track all those significant changes, so you also are able to see what you are doing. And that asks a lot of time. So the next thing we're going to do, and that was one of the tips we also got from someone during the B Leaders training, is to appoint certain specialists for different improvement areas, that are then you can call them the B Corp champions for that area. And then they are responsible of improving those areas, because it's really not something you can do alone as just a sustainability team within the company. You really need people from HR, from IT, from purchasing and procurement, to help you in the journey and to be accountable also for those improvements. So that's one of the next steps we will do, to be able to collect all that data, to prove our points, because there is a lot of potential, and a lot of people probably here in the webinar feel the same, that you think we can do a lot, but then yeah, it's time to prove it. And it's also good because it makes you look differently at things as well, and don't take things for granted, and be more conscious about what you do, which only benefits it on the long term, I think.
Thank you, Andreas. It's very interesting to have your point of view. Arnaud, I don't know if you want to add something and before moving to, because it's very interesting that we have the duo today.
No, I think it's really about this aspiration, and the willingness, and I think Andreas says, it's not just about the score, it's about the tool, it's about the journey, it's about pushing. And the beauty of this, we at Marc-Antoine and Andreas, you see, it works at all size, it works for little brewery, it works for a big company. And I think it works for the soul, for the business value. I think this is where we need to really see that. And actually Materialize is already a B Corp with Baobab Express, the company you launched in Benin, who is the first B Corp in West Africa. So it's also this willingness to explore and to make it happen. So yeah, it's nice.
Andrea, you want to add something?
Maybe to come back on the question of how long the certification process takes. Indeed, it's around it's probably 6 months to 2 years for a lot of companies, but we set it as a maybe 2-3 year goal, because we really want to take our time to go through that transformation, and we don't just want to see, okay, we now need 25 more points. How can we get them the quickest? What will give us the most points? And then we're done. We have the 80 points, and we get a certification. That's really not the case. You really, in those 2 years, want to transform the organization, ingrain it, or even ingrain it further into our DNA. So if it takes longer, then it takes longer. But yeah, it's maybe cliche, but it's really about the journey and about the end result, and not about just getting the certification and the points. So yeah.
One thing I wanted to add, actually, because in the case of Materialize, we work together to develop this vision of empowering the choice for sustainability. And I think it's a good point to make that it's not about the numbers, but you need somehow to have this, how do I want to impact the world? Because, if you go in your organization and just go around numbers, it doesn't give a feeling of people, how do I want to streamline my B Corp or my people, planet, profit, do good activities, because otherwise it's going in all directions. So it's good to reflect about, what's going to be my intent, my strategic vision, I would say, to impact, and then to make it, to see how it's going to B Corp, how B Corp helps you to achieve that instead of doing the opposite. Because otherwise you go, oh, let's do a bit of gender equality in the board, let's do a bit of carbon footprint stuff, and then it doesn't make sense. So it's important to sit together, if that soul, I would say that will, and then use B Corp to improve and do better in this. So I think this is also what we've been doing together over, and that idea shift over time. Meaning, 10 years ago, it was about a world with more personal touch. Know that there is a calling for sustainability. Empowering the choice for sustainability is, where Materialize is, we can really add a big portion to the people, to the ecosystem in which they operate, and then it funnels everything going down. So there's a risk to go into the details before having that bigger view.
Absolutely.
Marc-Antoine, you want to add something?
Yeah, to go in the direction of what say Arnaud, it's very funny because there is a sort of a reflex now into the company from all the employees. When we do something, they say, is it B Corp or not? So it means, it's not like gut, but it's are we going on the right direction or not? So and it's a reflection we have now every day. What we do, is it B Corp or not? So it's fine.
Good point, thank you. Diana, hello again. I just would like to invite you to introduce yourself and what is doing Quest, but you already mentioned that a little bit. And maybe I will directly ask you why you decide to join the movement, but also what's interesting is to talk about the recertification, because I think you are now working on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave a quick intro on Quest, but just to have a snapshot. So we've been a B Corp since 2019, and ultimately we're a design and strategy agency that focuses, are we making the most impact through our clients? So when we were looking at certification, it was, how do we find a way to legitimize what we're already doing? So very similar to Materialize, where, you know, we're already creating these kind of impact plans. We're working with innovative companies that are focused on social or environmental impact. We are taking care of our staff, but how do we really make this legitimized? And how do we have a movement behind us? So even from the creation of when Quest was founded, it was, our goal is, how do we become a B Corp? How do we create our organization to follow that framework? And as Marc-Antoine is saying, make every decision a B Corp decision. So ultimately, Quest was founded also a few years ago, so about 3 years ago. And as soon as we could become a B Corp, we tried and kind of went through it. But again, to reiterate what the rest of the panel was saying, it wasn't for us of, great, let's get the score and then be done with it. It was, great, let's use the tool to see where we're at. Are we actually as good as we think we are? Or what do we need to work on? And we set goals on, how are these our 3-year goals to improve? How are we going to make a bigger impact? So when we did actually get certified, I think our score was 84, I believe, in 2019. It was now a kind of a comfort of, great, now we have a movement behind us. Now we have a legitimized kind of certificate saying, we've done the work, we're here, we're making impact. We now feel a bit more empowered. We also have a community of potential partners to help us improve, help us get to that next impact. So for certification and recertification, you get recertified every 3 years, but it's not just, okay, let's look at a score and this is the score we want to go. It's, what were the goals that we set at the beginning of this journey, and where are we now? Have we taken the correct steps to improve, to make the most impact? Yes, for us at Quest, we say we only focus on companies that are making impact, and those are our clients, but what else can we do internally? So as we're looking at recertification right now, we're looking at, how can we create our own nonprofit that uses our same framework, but creates impact abroad? How can we also right now looking at our net zero journey? Instead of just doing the process and calculating our footprint and calling a day, how else can we challenge this? How else can we partner with other B Corps and really make an impact with our net zero journey? So it's, for us, I think it was ultimately a framework that we use to say, okay, we know we feel confident, but now we can kind of show this as a confident tool, saying we have something backing us, to then really, really push forward and say, okay, we're approaching recertification. What are those gaps? Who are we partnering to get there? And are we actually making a transformation versus just looking at a score that we want to attain? I hope that answered your question a bit more, Eglantine.
No, but that's perfect, because we already received many questions. And just what would you say to the participants who are here today, why they should start the movement? What does it bring to Quest?
It brings a lot of things to us, and a lot of it was mentioned earlier as well. As I think staffing wise, we get identified with just some high level quality candidates who say, I saw you on B Corp, I want to work for a B Corp, and I want to be a part of this journey. Even myself, to give you a personal story, I moved to Europe a 1.5 years ago, and my first thought was, how do I work for a B Corp? Because I trust this community. Because I moved from Toronto a 1.5 years ago, and what I did is just went through the B Corp directory and said, I want to use my skill set for making impact. So who can I identify? And that's how I came across Quest. So I think a lot of new hires and a lot of people who are recognizing this tool right now are saying, how I trust this, it's a trusted certificate. So I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that team. For us as well, looking at just clients, they see the certificate and say, hey, we're trusted, you're a trusted partner. How can we work with you? And it's really brought a lot of recognition, legitimacy, also just empowerment for our team as well, where we feel, the comfort of, can we make the right decisions, and are we using this framework to make the right decisions? So ultimately for us, it's been incredible journey and kind of looking at Quest's growth and the impact. We evaluate, yes, on financial, but are we making the most impact? And ultimately it definitely has increased since becoming a B Corp. And on a side note as well, if I can, is also the community part, right? And the movement part, where Eglantine and myself and Arnaud as well, we're part of what is called kind of B local community, where we're coming together with other B Corps in Belgium and saying, what are those lessons learned? What are you guys doing that we can kind of achieve? And how can we share each other's kind of unique skill sets to improve, and really creating this community that is ultimately helping us as well, where we feel ingrained, we're learning from each other, and it's not just us on our own trying to identify his journey. It's a community that's really pushing each other to not only increase the impact, but help each other. And I think that's really special that we're starting out in Belgium, that you don't see in other kind of certificate communities as well.
Thank you very much. I don't know. I propose to go on the question. I don't know, but maybe Diana, you want to add something, but maybe through the question we already say a lot of things. I have one question here saying data reporting, measuring might be a big challenge for startup in terms of cost. Any tips of accessible tools or organization help you to start to measure sustainability startup and impact? First, before letting the panel or the participant to respond, I know that someone in the Q&A mentioned that LSM, so it's part of the UC Louvain proposed service with their students. So I guess so maybe there is someone in the audience who can put in the chat the information about the LSM. Otherwise, you can contact me afterwards. And maybe Diana or Bruno, or Marc-Antoine, or someone else want to respond to the question?
Maybe, yeah. It's a job. It's not very easy. So we are small. We are not a startup, but we are only with. I'm working with 8 people, and it's true that as you have to prove everything you say, yeah, it's a hell of a job. That's right. That's right. But it helps for the future. I mean, you have to record everything. You have to prove everything. Yeah, but it's anyway good for the organization. So if it takes time, you have to consider that it will help you to manage to manage your company anyway. So it's even that is an improvement in your organization, but it takes time. That's right. That's right.
Thank you. I have another question. Some question.
But, to build, aligning people in a company anyhow takes time. So you may go faster doing B Corp than trying to align people in your direction. So it takes, but it saves time in the end. So I wanted to add.
I agree.
I have some question about the language. So some ask, is it possible to submit? I know that the BIA can be filled in French, but Marc-Antoine, did you use the English? Do you have to submit the document in English?
We made the BIA in French because I'm the only English-speaking guy they don't speak French. I mean, so yeah, it's impossible to do that I think maybe with when you stay into the Benelux level, that you can have it in French, as I heard. But when you jump to United States, you have to do it in American. So it's not English, it's American. Sorry.
I won't take offense to that, Marc-Antoine.
There is one.
If I can jump in on that really quickly.
Sure.
No, it's okay. That's also why a lot of resources from B Lab as well is focused on how can we have more presence in these regions, right? Like, yes, there's a team in the States, but there's also in Canada, and now there's a Benelux team. There's, I believe, now starting a team in Italy. So it's again looking at how can we create better resources to make it easier in the future. So hopefully in the future we can have papers submitted in different languages and having those analysts be able to do that translation. But it's a journey, and just as being a B Corp and kind of you have to be transparent in this, the B Lab as well is very transparent with we're improving, we're getting there. And that's why there's teams now in place in these regions that are growing to make sure they have the support in the languages they need, as well as I mentioned, there's B leaders that are in those locations to kind of guide and support to help you as much as they can as well.
Thank you. There is some question about the costs. Maybe Diana, you can explain the new policy about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, costs, yes, it's not, like I said, the tool itself doesn't have a cost, but once you've actually gone through it, once you're being certified, it does have a cost to be certified, and it's I believe, an annual cost, if I'm not mistaken. Now that does range, just again, you're a small agency like Quest where there's 5 of us and we don't have kind of the budget for that. We're not going to have the same range as a large CPG brand like Danone, for example. I'm not familiar with the few changes, but I believe it's anywhere from 500 to, I mean, it could range, certification fees can range from 500 to in the double thousands, but ultimately it depends on the size of the organization. Are you looking at different businesses as well within that same organization? So it really depends, and it's going to be customized based on your organization specifically. And obviously depending on revenue when it comes to that as well.
I have some comment for Marc-Antoine. Someone say that he would like to try your beer. So if you want to tell the brand of your beer, you can put on the chat. The name just on the chat. Don't hesitate. I'm really writing the question. Diana, Arnaud, Andrea, if you see question you want to respond, do not hesitate. Someone say concerning the reporting of CO2 emission, we have created a tool that digitalizes automatic. Yeah, that's just a point. Sorry. I think we already go through a lot of question. Yeah, how does you see the B Corp certification evolving in the future? And maybe that's true that we see that now with Europe and taxonomy, there is not a lot of new trends. So how do you see the merging between the B Corp certification and all these sustainable report standards and things like this? I can respond if someone wants to respond, or
I can start if that's okay. I think we mentioned it earlier of that's exciting for us, right? Because that means that the movement is happening. It means people are looking at right now, obviously a heavy topic is like net zero journey and the sustainability practices that EcoVadis is growing in their supply chain. The more there is, yes, it's overwhelming because there's a lot of them, and how do you choose and where do you go? But it ultimately means that businesses are changing, they're adapting to the pressures, and there's a lot more support. I think in my opinion, so obviously the rest of the panelists can chime in, but the B impact assessment and B Corp as well, they're adapting and they're moving to see how can we holistically approach this. Is there another partnership that could come up to say, how can we make the most impact? So for me, with all the new kind of policies and everything going on and a lot of different routes, it's just more of a confirmation that this is working and that really there's a change. And so ultimately, this certification is important to say we're holistically changing, not just looking at environmentally focused certificates.
Yeah, and what I really love with the B Lab team, that they are really in contact and they are also doing lobbying. So of course, the B Corp movement is really how to assess your impact, but every job will have an impact. The CFO in the future will have to include in the decision the non-financial value, but that will be something else. So I think that everything will find its place and it's definitely complementary.
I see two questions actually, one of Armel, if I may jump in, on the improvement in awareness, communication, and so on. So in our case, so on talent, on people recruitment, we see people coming saying, we found you via B Corp, so that's a measure when you say a measure. When I look at the partnership we do with other consulting firm, I would say, more than 50% of the partnership we do are with B Corp. So we see there, the impact of, I would say even 90%, if not all, the impact of being faster aligned. So that's a clear measure. And I see also, because we are consultants, we are faster into pitches. Meaning, when you are on the long list, suddenly if the client is a B Corp, if you are a long list of potential consultants, they will put us quite fast into the short list. So that's also a measure that we can also see, into the sales funnel. That's clearly a measure that we can see in case of our business, of course. Yeah. And there was another one.
So can I jump on that, Arnaud, really
Yeah.
quickly on communication? I think keep in mind that there's such an array of different companies that are certified. So yes, we're maybe smaller out here, but that certification travels with Patagonia, Danone, Ben & Jerry's, and knowing that certification, we've actually gotten a lot of just people approaching us because we share that community and we share those goals. So I think keep in mind that this certification goes across the board, different sizes of organizations, different really brand names that are saying, hey, we support this too. And that in turn also has helped us in our communication and our awareness of our brand because we're associated with it. So even just by doing that and having that association of the community is an immense kind of, jump from a small agency in Belgium for us, at least.
Thank you. I think that it's already a lot of information. What I suggest that we close here. Do not hesitate to contact one of us. I will send an email with the recording, the presentation, and if it's okay for the participant, the email in CC of all the participants. I would like to respond to Francois. For multinational company, we will organize a session with a specialist from B-Lab Europe about large enterprise in June, 11th of June. It will be really focused on large corporates. The link are not on our website yet, but it will come. As Diana said, they will have a session only on the SDG Action Manager, again with a specialist from B-Lab Europe and always testimonial. There is a lot of more questions. It's already a lot. Thank you very much to Arnaud, Diana, Andrea, Marc-Antoine. It's always very interesting to feel the energy of this movement. I think that it reflects a lot what happened. And as Diana and Arnaud mentioned before, we see that the Belgian community grow quickly and that we are very strong together. And it's very nice to see. So again, do not hesitate to contact me or one of the participants. We are one big family, the big